Hi, this is Summer with Summer's Tips and Stitches, and this is a book review video. Now, I debated on whether or not I was going to attach this to the previous video, but I did get up to the 15 minutes. I will try to stretch this video out. About a year ago, for last year, one of my friends in my Summer's Tips and Stitches Facebook group had mentioned that they were at their library and they found these crochet murder mystery books. And because I have a bad relationship with the library, I'm a terrible patron and I always lose books and forget to return them. I went on to Amazon and started looking at them, and Betty Hechtman has indeed written a series of books, murder mysteries, centering around this gal named Molly Pink. And then she meets with a crochet group in this bookstore. Her job is to manage the special events, and she has a little group of friends, and the same core of the friends are in every book. There's this gal Adele who is a little bit jealous and always after Pink, and then there's this gal Cece who's moderately famous and she's the group leader, and then there's Molly, and then Molly's friend Diane. And then I can't remember this other gal, but there's this shy, quiet gal that uses crochet as a tension or stress relief. And then after a couple books, they picked up this guy named Eduardo, he is a supermodel, they claim, and he crochets. He learned from his grandma. And so that is the core group. There are some side stories here and there to keep, developing this group. But main situation is these gals get together couple times a week in this bookstore to crochet. Now, in this book, You Better Not Die, Molly's bookstore owner decided to bring in some yarn. They brought in some pattern books, and she's had the club there. And so she thought it might be a cute idea to bring in some yarn into the corner so you could buy the yarn with the pattern books. And so that Molly was managing that side of the store. Molly, the main character, has in each book been involved in solving some kind of murder mystery, in seeing a crime, witnessing a crime, hearing about a crime, and then she starts taking over. And nearly every book she gets arrested. Her boyfriend, which she is reluctant to say boyfriend, is a police officer, and then she's got another guy that's her friend that's a lawyer. And those two guys get her out of trouble because sometimes she's getting into places where she shouldn't, or the murderer then starts going after her to kind of get her. And so those two guys are always tag teaming to get her out of trouble because she cannot resist solving murders. In this one, I'm going to hopefully not give out into spoilers because this probably has been my favorite. I know. In this one, You Better Not Die, it starts off right away. Molly's next door neighbor, it's a husband and a wife and a couple kids, he goes missing. And she was off on some kind of trip, and somebody smelled some terrible odors coming from her house, and they thought maybe he was dead in her house. I know. Ooh. Just turned out that there were some dead rats. I kind of skimmed through that. She called an exterminator. She had some rats in her attic, and that terrible smell was the rats, not the neighbor. And so that's how she gets introduced into this murder mystery. So he goes missing, and then a little while later, they find some clues that lead them to believe he's committed suicide. Now, she is sort of involved in that, but her involvement in his missing has to do with a crocheted blanket. So apparently the guy that goes missing a year or so ago, his sister had made him a crocheted blanket, and he didn't really care for it. His wife thought because he just folded up and put it in the back corner of a closet. He never looked at it. It wasn't out. One time she took it out and laid it on the couch. He took it and packed it back up and put it in the back of the closet. So the wife, I guess spring cleaning or whatnot, gave the blanket to Molly, their next door neighbor, because she knew she was a crocheter. And I guess in a roundabout way, Molly had brought that to their crochet club because their crochet club frequently does charity. And they were going to donate this blanket. What? I know. But before they did, Molly had asked Adele, one of the crochet members, and the feistiest one of them all had asked her to look over the blanket and find a pattern because she wanted to make one like it. Okay, so Adele kind of started working on that. She was looking at the motif, writing some kind of pattern. She had it for a while. She gave it back to Cece, who then was going to put it in a donation. Okay, so that's like the beginning setup of the story. Now I'm going to tell you guys, Adele in this book is just the best. I mean, she is crazy. I'm going to try not to spoil it, but in the end, Adele, who I normally think is annoying and rude to Pink, and I would just like, get her out of here. And the last book that I read of hers, she was annoying. But in this one, Adele, her wild, quirky self, ends up saving the day, kind of a thing. So I really did enjoy reading this book. I really do enjoy them. As you can see, maybe you can't see. Oh yeah, you can. Here's my little mess. I've got a few of them right here, and I've been just kind of going through them one at a time. These are not super deep educational type books. They just take a little while to get through the story. You don't have to do a lot of thinking. I typically read them on the weekends, spring break, Christmas break, anytime that I have a few days out of school. This one took the longest because I started it when Flynn was in the ER in February when he had gotten pneumonia and RSV. And I was going to be in the ER for quite a few hours. I knew how that was going to be. And so I brought the book, and then I didn't end up finishing it for a bit. I want to say early spring break. So I started in February and then kind of stuck it aside, and then I had to pull it out, get acquainted with it, and finished it during spring break. So I love these books. Now, the other thing that I really love about the books, and for the first few, I would make something. But one thing that she does, and I was not going to make this one. I don't know if I'm rude. So she includes a simple snowflake pattern, because in this book, they talk about decorating the bookstore with snowflakes that they've crocheted. So she's got that pattern in there. Another thing that they talk about in this one is there's an author that's going to do a presentation in the bookstore. And remember, that's Molly's job, is to do these public events in the bookstore. But he was an author of vampire stories, and it's a little bit, I'm not going to go into the details. You'll have to read it to find out. But they do have a vampire scarf. Now, again, vampires aren't my deal. And they're pretty good patterns. They tell you what kind of yarn to use. This is a Bernat satin sport yarn. So she tells you the kind of yarn to use, how much yards, how many skeins, how many colors, the gauge. And so in this one, there's 2 crochet patterns, one for a snowflake and one for the scarf. Then another thing that Molly does, and she frequently cooks or bakes. And so they have a recipe in the back of this one for Mrs. Shedd's Santa Lucia buns. And then the Showstopper stained glass cookies. So, I think that's really cute that they have the patterns. I have made a few of the things from the books in the previous times. One was a little granny square, and they were making a bunch of blankets with those squares, and so I made that. One was a little handbag, and I'm trying to think. Oh, the first one was a shawl or a scarf or a wrap. And then here is a picture of the author herself. And right in this book, it shows that she has, I don't have my reading glasses, as you guys can tell. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books. And then she has, and that these are all surrounding Molly in the murder mysteries. And they all have such cute titles. This one is called You Better Not Die. And the next one's called Behind the Seams. The first book is Hooked on Murder. They're all such clever little titles. And then she also has another little series starting in here called Yarn Retreat Mysteries. So I'm going to hold her name up there. You can pause it and type that into Amazon or write it on a piece of paper. And then you can head off to your library, because I heard that she has a lot more books than what I have. I think I have, the next one for me to read is Behind the Seams. And then I have If Hooks Could Kill, which I have that up there. And for better or worsted, which is weird because behind the seams is this next book after this one. And this one doesn't have the for better or worsted listed in it. And this one does. So that's weird. But anyway, these are delightful and I love reading them and I love Molly, and I'm going to be honest, I want her to start dating the lawyer. I want her to get rid of the policeman boyfriend and move on to the lawyer. I get heavily invested. But I have been keeping these here, and I probably will finish them up in the summer. But, you know, I've got a full month of school left, plus a week of April. And I love the books. They're really great. You can check them out at your public library. That's how I'd first heard about them, as one of our yarn friends had gotten them there. You can also buy them on Amazon. The prices range in the $7.99 to $9.99. I'll put a link in the description to this specific book, and maybe, I don't know if I can look up that author on Amazon and put a link to like the list of pages that she has. I don't know, maybe I'll type in some of the titles and how much they are. I'll see what I can do. But if you want just a nice light read, something to read on vacation or something to read while you're traveling, or if you just like to carry a pocket book in your purse so that you can read whenever you're waiting, if you're not crocheting while you're waiting, I highly recommend these books. They're my new favorite. I've moved from these Christian romance books. I don't know how I got down that hole. And now I'm moving on to crochet and knit murder mysteries. All right, thanks for watching and subscribing. Thanks for liking and sharing my videos. And until the next video, happy crafting. Bye.